This episode of the Danville Discussion is sponsored by patreon.com/Caleb Dirksen and the incredible supporters over there, who each month get tons of rewards, such as 2-day early access to new episodes of this very podcast, as well as 1-week early access to new chapters of ongoing fanfiction, 2-day early access to new YouTube videos, including Caleb reviews, plus our exclusive bi-weekly newsfeed, commission requests, and many more. As well as access to an hour-long monthly Discord chat for $50 a month or higher patrons with a Discord account. So we invite you to join the family today to get even more benefits throughout every month. Head to patreon.com/Caleb Dirksen. That's patreon.com/CALEB, that's Caleb, DOERKSEN, that's Dirksen. Patreon.com/Caleb Dirksen. Link is in the description of this episode. Hey guys, some year 2025 has been. I will say it wasn't that bad of a year for me, since there have been some things in my personal life that went well, but otherwise it's just been nothing but one disaster after another all around. I was less focused on my work with all that I had to go through in 2025, and as a result, this podcast has been even more ridiculously inactive than it was the year prior. I only put out 2 episodes in 2025, and the last one got released in June. But this year, I cannot let that happen to me again. My New Year's resolution for 2026 will be to release episodes way more frequently, even if something else interrupts the production, and hopefully it'll be a bi-weekly, monthly, or even weekly schedule now, so I can get at least more done for this podcast as well as my other work. Will I be able to do it? We'll just have to wait and see. And I'm going to keep that promise no matter what happens. This episode, I'm also going to cover some of the news I didn't get to go over since last time. Anyways, without further ado, please enjoy this Danville Discussion review of Hamster and Gretel, Season 1, Episode 11, Grounded and Sleepover with the Enemy.
And now, our feature presentation.
Today, on a Hamster and Gretel episode of the Danville Discussion.
Superpowers super smooth. Home by bedtime. Nighty-night, hamster.
Wait, I can't help but feel like we forgot something.
Someone is in a lot of trouble.
The dishes! I'm so sorry. I got sidetracked. I'll go do them now.
Too late.
You're grounded!
No!
Did I just hear the G word?
Yep, your little sister is spending the entire weekend in her room.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the Danville Discussion, a podcast about all things related to Phineas and Ferb and beyond. I'm your host, Caleb Dirksen, and some of you may know me from my self-titled YouTube channel, the one and only place for some web series related to animation such as Caleb Reviews. If this is your first time listening, well, first, let me just say, welcome. And let me tell you a little bit of what this is all about. You see, this is a podcast since you can hear me, but not really see me for the most part, and hence the word Danville in the title, believe it or not. I talk about shows set in the Dan Povenmire and or Jeff Swampy Marsh universe, or Dwampyverse for short. Specifically, I go through each episode of either Phineas and Ferb or Hamster and Gretel, and I go through all the cultural or in-universe references, fun facts, and anything else that I might find, and then finally I will end things off by giving each episode a roller coaster rating. So, on today's episode, I am going to be talking about Episode 11 of Hamster and Gretel, which features the following segments: Grounded and Sleepover with the Enemy. If you want to check out more episodes of the Danville Discussion, then head on to anchor.fm/Caleb-Dirksen, and it'll take you directly to the Danville Discussion website on Spotify for creators. Now, to start things off, I'm going to go through some new listener feedback.
Oh, we can't get to our song till we deal with our fan mail. Think you could help?
Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh!
Great, we can start with this bag.
In terms of listener feedback from email or podcast platforms, I have gotten a new comment from Spotify on episode 6A, in which I talked about the Kevin theme song takeover of Hamster and Gretel and the first 3 chibi Tiny Tale shorts of it from a user by the name of Zahava and Chaya, and they said that they loved it, and also loved how I put the song on, which is the Kevin theme song takeover, which I played the clip of on the intro of the episode. Why, thank you, Zahava and Chaya. I'm glad you enjoyed that episode, and I really had a good time talking about all those. And always remember, if what you're looking for isn't necessarily someone who just podcasts about Phineas and Ferb, but someone who also podcasts about other things related to it and its sister shows, including Hamster and Gretel, then I'm your man. Also, you may not know this, but on all podcast platforms where you can listen to the Danville Discussion for free, that episode, episode 6A, is actually the most streamed and downloaded episode of the podcast, and this also applies to YouTube because that episode has the most views out of all the others, with more than 2,000 views since I uploaded it. That really is quite the accomplishment, so thanks again for leaving that comment. You are awesome. Alright, now it's time that I'm going to quickly recap everything that's happened in the world of the Dwampyverse during the summer, fall, and winter of 2025 and the first bit of 2026, and since I last put out an episode of the Danville Discussion back in early June. Starting in June, the 18th of that month saw the premiere of a new episode of Jeopardy! And on that new episode, this happened.
A river runs to it. You need to give me the big body of water that each one empties into. And finally,
we're Phineas and Ferb. Summer's just about here, and as we find some projects to occupy our minds, we'll have clues about inventions that seemed far-fetched. At first.
Yes, on that Jeopardy! Episode, they presented a category during their first round called Getting Inventive with Phineas and Ferb to promote the release of Season 5 on Disney Channel and Disney+. This category would show original animated footage featuring Phineas and Ferb, which I believe was provided by Snipple, with Vincent Martell reprising his role as Phineas, and each clue would be spoken by Phineas regarding some of the strangest yet some of the most famous inventions throughout history, although Ferb has no lines in any of these clues. Now, I remember regularly watching Jeopardy! Back in my youth during the 2000s and 2010s when Alex Trebek was the host, and I really loved watching it every week during the evenings. Like, I don't even know a single person who hasn't watched at least one episode of Jeopardy! In their lives. It's arguably one of the most influential game shows of all time next to The Price is Right, Wheel of Fortune, and Family Feud. I was actually really tearful hearing about Alex Trebek's passing in 2020 as he was 80 years old, so he actually lived a decent enough life, having hosted Jeopardy! For such a long time, ever since its revival for daily syndication back in 1984 all the way up until his passing. And since then, they would have various guest hosts for the rest of the season, including Ken Jennings, who had actually been one of the biggest record-holding contestants on the show, which finally led to him becoming the permanent host as of 2023. And honestly, I don't think they could have picked a better successor to Trebek than him. Like, he's been doing great with the show lately. And with this episode that featured Phineas and Ferb hosting that category, I watched that episode on my cable box back in June on the day that it aired after saying a recording for it so I wouldn't miss it. And yes, I still have cable TV as well as physical media to coexist with my streaming services. And it was on Yes TV where I watched it, since I do live in Canada and that's one of the Canadian TV networks that currently airs Jeopardy! And it was very exciting to see a category dedicated to the two stepbrothers. I even imagine Candace calling out, "Mom, Phineas and Ferb are hosting their own category on Jeopardy!" But yeah, that episode was a lot of fun, and it really took me back to the days when I would regularly watch Jeopardy! And once again, congratulations to Phineas and Ferb for showing up on Jeopardy! Next, 2025 has been one of the biggest years for lost media finds, most notably with the unreleased pilots that have been leaked. We've gotten the full 1998 pilot for Family Guy, which looked and felt different from the final product, and would later become the show's premiere episode, Death Has a Shadow. We got the full 1999 pilot of Dora the Explorer, which actually looked much different from the final show and was essentially a prototype for the season 1 episode Beaches, where Dora and Boots head to the beach. And we got the 1998 pilot for Me and My Friends, which was later turned into the Backyardigans and was done in live action with costumes in comparison to the final computer animated product. But on June 22nd last year, it happened. We finally got to see a full-color animatic/animated pilot of Phineas and Ferb from early 2006 leaked on the internet, after only having the storyboard pitch presented by Dan Povenmire himself in existence as featured on the Fast and the Phineas DVD. Produced between July and September 2005 and fully completed around early 2006, this pilot has some of the lines from the original storyboard pitch changed around to what would be used in the final version of the first episode, Roller Coaster, and features full voice acting by many of the original cast, in which most of the lines that were recorded were actually ones that were later edited for the final product. However, Ferb and Major Monogram sound different, and that's because D. Bradley Baker voiced Monogram as well as Perry here before Jeff Swampy Marsh became Monogram's official voice, and with Ferb, he actually sounds more American here, as he was voiced by Jeremy's original voice actor Mitchell Musso, before it was decided to make him British and cast him with his original voice actor Thomas Brodie Sangster, who is British himself. Which is ironic since apparently both Ferb and Jeremy are now voiced by American actor David Arrigo Jr., with him taking over as Ferb since 2018 with the Phineas and Ferb effect from Milo Murphy's Law, and then apparently taking over as Jeremy since season 5 after Mitchell Musso was fired for some illegal activity, though it isn't fully confirmed yet as they don't credit David Arrigo Jr. as both Ferb and Jeremy in the revival episodes that Jeremy appears in, and only feature David a second time among the additional voices. The ending is the only thing in there that's fully animated, and all the characters, of course, have different color palettes compared to the final product. And according to Dan Povenmire, this pilot was actually in competition with a proposed Walt Disney television animation series based on Chicken Little. Ultimately, it was Phineas and Ferb that won the bid, and if you ask me, that's definitely for the best, because Chicken Little honestly wasn't that good of a movie, and I really don't think it needed to be spun off into a TV show like they did with Lilo and Stitch the series or The Emperor's New School, which I personally like and consider to be worthy continuations of the original movies they're based on. Next, on October 14th, we've also got the announcement of a new card game by Maestro Media and Disney Consumer Products called Phineas and Ferb Summer Showdown, set to be released on February 2nd, 2026, with pre-orders available now. And to give you an idea of what this game is all about, allow me to read from my source here on the Maestro Media website. Fans of all ages have had their imagination sparked by Disney's animated series Phineas and Ferb. Now that same spirit of summer fun is coming to the tabletop with Disney's Phineas and Ferb Summer Showdown, a fast-paced card game inspired by the beloved series. In Disney's Phineas and Ferb Summer Showdown, players can choose to play as their favorite Phineas and Ferb characters and compete to collect the most points over the course of 3 rounds. Before each round, an event card is flipped, which will affect the entire round. Each round has 9 turns consisting of just 4 steps: select, place face down, reveal, and resolve. A unique once-per-game character ability will shake things up in this wildly fun game. And Javon Frazier, I think that's how you pronounce his name, the CEO and founder of Maestro Media, goes on to say, "We're thrilled to launch our second Disney-inspired game with the debut of Phineas and Ferb Summer Showdown. This franchise has always been about adventure, fun, and family, and that's exactly what this game delivers. From clever character abilities to fast-paced rounds full of surprises, it captures the spirit of summer fun and endless replayability. We can't wait for fans of all ages to dive in and create their own unforgettable adventures. We also got our look at the box art and some of the cards featuring the characters and some iconic moments in the show. The box has Phineas, Isabella, Ferb, Perry, Candace, and Dr. Doofenshmirtz on the front, and it can be played with 2 to 6 players ages 8 and up, with an estimated playtime of 5 to 15 minutes. Honestly, this is a game I'd love to try out with some friends and family of mine one day when I get it, since the only other tabletop games based on or related to Phineas and Ferb that I have are the 104 Days of Summer board game by Jack's Pacific, and a Disney I Found It game, which does have an area based on the world of the show, as well as a playable Perry token. And because I'm in Canada, I don't know what the price is going to be in the US, but the Canadian price to pre-order right now on the Maestro Media website is $22 Canadian, so it shouldn't be too expensive on my end. So again, if you're interested in getting Phineas and Ferb's Summer Showdown and playing it with your family and friends, keep in mind that the card game will be out on February 2nd of this year, with pre-orders on now through maestromedia.com. This is also not to mention other things that happened between June and January, like the San Diego Comic-Con panel where they showed a new clip for the episode Duplicated, in which the whole gang turns into Dr. Doofenshmirtz after getting hit by his new Inator, specifically in terms of his personality and his accent, and confirmed that new episodes of Season 5 will continue airing on Disney Channel for the rest of 2025 into January 2026, when the rest of the season will also be dropping on Disney+. Hamster and Gretel executive producer and story editor Joanna Hausman joining the Phineas and Ferb writing team, the Destination D23 announcement about the hinting of more Phineas and Ferb crossovers, including a couple more Star Wars specials adapting the rest of the original trilogy, the launch of the new Cartoonified with Phineas and Ferb short form series, which is on YouTube now under the Disney Channel Animation Channel, LA Comic-Con, where their Phineas and Ferb panel had some of the voice actors Vincent Martella, David Arrigo Jr., Allison Stoner, and Olivia Olson, along with a surprise appearance from Dan Povenmire, primarily talking about the show's impact and legacy across millions of viewers, a new animated short in which Phineas and Ferb recap the first season of the Disney Plus series of Percy Jackson and the Olympians as a promotion for Season 2, the release of a new theme song takeover with Major Monogram, and the official release date of the Agent P Undersea shorts, which is on Friday, January 16th, 2026 on Disney+, the same day that Phineas and Ferb airs the remaining 2 episodes of Season 5, and I will later on recap the titles and synopsis of every other Season 5 episode that aired since my last episode of the podcast. Alright, now with all that out of the way, let's begin talking about the episode itself. But first, let's go over the air dates for these episodes, and both segments together. This entire episode first premiered on Saturday, November 12th, 2022 on Disney Channel. Now, our first segment is called Grounded. And Grounded was written by Valerie Bryman and Joshua Pruitt, storyboarded by Susan Buckheim, Rufino Roy Camacho II, and Tammy Manis, and directed by Trisha Garcia. Sometime after the events of the previous episode, UFO, Kevin and Gretel attempt to figure out the aliens' true motives, wondering if they meant for Hamster and Gretel to use their powers for no good, when Fred calls to notify them about a UFO sighting.
Hey guys, what's up?
There's been a UFO sighting downtown. You guys should check it out. Because, aliens.
Let's go check it out right now!
Check what out?
Nothing?
However, Dave and Carolina task them to wash the dishes before bedtime, and they decide to do those in concerns that it could be another false alarm. But then Hamster and Gretel decide to sneak out to investigate the UFO sighting, only to find that it is a false alarm, as it's just a yellow and green blimp saying United Financial Offices, taxes done slowly. But as Hamster and Gretel fly back home, we then see that the actual UFO was hiding behind the blimp, and the ship heads for the old Appaloosa campground. And the aliens give evil powers to a sloppy Joe that was left behind as two waste managers were cleaning up the picnic area, turning it into a sentient, raging monster of meat. When Gretel returns home with Hamster, she realizes she neglected to finish her chores when Carolina opens the door to come into her room, and is subsequently grounded by Dave and Carolina as a result. Meanwhile, the Sloppy Joe monster attacks a campsite where a guide is telling a group of kids a scary story in front of the campfire. Forbidden from leaving her room for the entire weekend, Gretel attempts to figure out how to defeat the Sloppy Joe monster and save the campground. When Kevin turns down Gretel's plans to fight the monster from her room, Hamster resolves to lift the house and carry it to the monster, even carrying it over Clyde and Andrew, who are playing chess as Clyde hired an opera singer. Realizing the house is now airborne, Kevin distracts Dave and Carolina by having them wear blindfolds and pretend they are on a guided journey, disguising it as a homework assignment. During the fight, complete with the song I Got Beef, Gretel resorts to calling Fred after being unable to defeat the monster, including the fact that her arms really are too short to fight it directly from the window, and Fred suggests that she use heat vision to overcook the Sloppy Joe monster, making it hard and brittle. Gretel complies, preventing the monster from attacking Kevin, Dave, and Carolina. Then Hamster brings the house back to its original position, and while Kevin and Gretel clean up the mess, however, an unharmed portion of the monster emerges on a hamburger bun and vows to take over the tri-state area Doofenshmirtz style, only to be eaten up by Churro. Kevin and Gretel then agree to abandon UFO sightings and only focus on crime fighting as a UFO passes by the moon, which turns out to be a large flying python from earlier in the episode, and that is the end of Grounded.
He really does eat anything.
I'm glad we helped those campers, but it would have been easier if I hadn't been grounded.
I think this is all proof that we should stick to crime fighting and not running around looking for UFOs.
I'm down.
The darn wind took the python again.
So now I might as well go over the references. There's a couple in-universe references to Phineas and Ferb I spotted. The first one had the farmer and his wife making a small appearance in a cutaway gag after Hamster mentions that large flying python as an example of a false UFO sighting. I also saw that they seem to be using a different color scheme similarly to what they had in Candace Against the Universe. And when the Sloppy Joe remains are speaking, planning to use their powers to conquer the entire tri-state area just before Churro ate it up, I sense that that's something I would normally hear Dr. Doofenshmirtz saying.
What the?
Ha! You thought you destroyed me? Well, I'm the brains of this sloppy outfit, and I'm gonna use my powers to conquer the entire tri-state.
And then there's a couple cultural references I spotted, starting with the first one that I don't know if a lot of other people spotted, which is that Hamster and Gretel in the latter's room, both fighting a meat-themed monster, is similar to the first episode of the Nicktoons show Danny Phantom, called Mystery Meat, in which Danny fights a meat-themed ghost. Now, back in the day, I actually watched episodes of Danny Phantom while it was on TV, and from what I watched, most of those episodes were pretty enjoyable in my humble opinion. I especially like the concept of a boy becoming a ghost-powered superhero who fights evil ghosts that come through the portal after a freak accident with the machine that opens the portal, which is even explained in the opening theme song as a rap number.
Young Danny Phantom, he was just 14 when his parents built a very strange machine. It was designed to view a world unseen. He's gonna catch 'em all 'cause he's Danny Phantom. When it didn't quite work, his folks, they just quit. But then Danny took a look inside of it. There was a great big flash, everything just changed. His molecules got all rearranged.
Nowadays, the one thing I actually dislike about it is its creator, Butch Hartman, who also created The Fairly OddParents, another Nickelodeon show I enjoyed, until it hit a major decline in quality by the end of the 2000s. And that's mainly because, aside from the fact that he's openly a born-again Christian to the point that he's even made some low-quality VeggieTales ripoffs, Butch himself is an egotist, an ableist, an art thief, and even a scammer and con artist with his failed streaming platform Oaxis. If you want to learn more about all these, there are plenty of videos on YouTube that you can find on why Butch Hartman is not necessarily the best person to idolize, or even go back to one of my first Danville Discussion episodes, episode 1A, in which I talked about the news for Hamster and Gretel before the show came out. But yeah, Danny Phantom was actually pretty good from what I saw of it. And with the other, while we're in Gretel's room, I actually spotted what looked like a Nintendo GameCube underneath her TV. Like, it's a purple cube-shaped video game console with a gray panel on the front for the controller inputs, and it's literally a GameCube. Now, I have a GameCube myself, but it's in black, and if you watch my Caleb Plays every Friday, you may know I've mostly been using it to play Mario Kart Double Dash, which is a highly intense but very fun Mario Kart game in my opinion. Now, for a couple handy tools out of my toolbox of grounded supplies, the episode's title is a pun on not one, but two things that are presented in here. The first thing it refers to is grounding, the punishment of being forced to stay at home, as Gretel gets grounded by her parents for not doing the dishes by bedtime, and is forced to stay in her room because of it. And the other is ground beef and the act of grinding the beef, as the villain is a sentient Sloppy Joe monster, and a Sloppy Joe is ground beef on a bun. The song in the episode, I Got Beef, was done by Nigerian-born Canadian rapper Akintoye, who would later voice a recurring character in Hamster and Gretel, that being Kevin's confident buddy Anthony, beginning in the episode Micromanager. For a visual error, it does state on the Hamster and Gretel wiki that as the aliens give superpowers to the Sloppy Joe, their UFO is briefly shown with the 8 circular lights from the decoy UFO that appeared in UFO. It took me another rewatch to actually see where that was located, since I might have missed it when I was watching the episode the first time, but I finally noticed that just as the meat was coming to life. And the Batman-style image scene transitions here include dishes covered in grime and dishwashing soap, which is used to cut to Kevin and Gretel doing the dishes, and Hamster and a smiling Gretel, used to go to the house compartment being put back in its place. So let's talk about what I liked or whatnot about this episode. Now, I find it real neat how the point of the episode is how it further establishes that Gretel doesn't like doing the dishes and has tried several times to bypass it following superhero sibling rivalry. And even Abuelita's world, where Abuelita strictly says to her grandkids,
"And we do not use the dishwasher, you are the dishwasher."
Here, Carolina also establishes that Gretel has to do them immediately before bed this time, with no tomorrows left. And of course, Gretel disobeys in the end, as she and Hamster are more interested in looking for UFO sightings, to the point that she leaves immediately without finishing the job at all, and by the time they return, it's already bedtime and they have completely forgotten that she had to do the dishes. Plus, even if Gretel actually had a good reason to immediately go find the UFO instead of finishing the dishes first, it's not like her parents are aware of her and Hamster's superpowers, or UFOs, or anything in between, so in the end, Dave and Carolina are still good parents, and they are justified in believing Gretel tried to skip on doing the dishes yet again simply because she doesn't like doing it. And they're still good parents because, at worst, they simply ground her for the weekend, both Saturday and Sunday. For someone that constantly skips on doing the dishes all the time, it isn't very severe. At least it's not so incredibly overly concerning like how Abuelita showed off her very strict nature through ways such as having Gretel and Kevin do chores the old-fashioned way non-stop while taking away their phones in Abuelita's world. It's actually tamer in many ways. And that's what makes it one of my highlights of the episode. And I Got Beef is a solid rap number by Akintoye too, as most of the lyrics are pretty funny, including Gretel's line, "And she doesn't have to know about this little costume," which was a nice touch, and the instrumental is pretty catchy.
She doesn't have to know about this little costume.
It's the letter of the law.
Speaking of things that are funny, I enjoyed a lot of the jokes and gags, including the cameo of the farmer and his wife pitting down the large flying pie tin, and Hamster's gags where he says 3 saddest words, including when Gretel realizes Kevin was right about her arms being too short to fight the monster after attempting a sloppy Joe punch.
Sloppy Joe punch! My arms really are too short for that. Kevin was right.
3 saddest words.
And that brings up another one of my biggest highlights, the UFO blimp visual gag. And I'm putting UFO in quotes here because the acronym actually stands for United Financial Offices, but as Hamster and Gretel are flying up to it, the name is blurred out with the first letters of each word made bigger and bolder, and when they arrive, Hamster says Kevin was right as the 3 saddest words in the English language, and the actual UFO is hidden behind the blimp.
There it is! It even says UFO on it! Never mind.
Kevin was right. The 3 saddest words in the English language.
Earlier in the episode, when Carolina tells Gretel that she's all out of tomorrow mornings when it comes to doing the dishes, she says, "I'm putting my foot in," but Kevin points out that she means putting her foot down, but she then responds that she and Dave did not teach Kevin to correct her idioms in a respectful manner, which is another joke I got that gave me a good chuckle. And then there are the other running gags. The Clyde and Andrew one where they're playing chess, and Andrew thinks Clyde hired a flying building to distract him while playing chess, and Clyde says no, but he did hire an opera singer.
Did you hire a flying building to distract me, Clyde?
No, I did not, Andrew, but I did hire that opera singer.
Well played, Clyde. Well played.
And the other one that happens throughout this episode where this elderly neighbor in the other house within the same complex as the Grant Gomez family, Mrs. Maybank, voiced by Lauren Tom, who also voices Gretel's elementary school teacher, Miss Jamanpour, on this show, attempts to leave the house as the complex is airborne, but she panics only to realize she forgot something else from inside.
Don't want to be late to my optometrist appointment. Sweet Lucy! I forgot my phone.
Both of them are hilarious and among my other highlights. I also really liked the writing of the way Kevin thought of his plan to keep Dave and Carolina distracted with guided meditation while the heroes fly the house over to fight the Sloppy Joe monster. It really shows that Kevin cares about his sister and her pet's identities being safe, especially during a time when Gretel isn't allowed to come out of her room after being grounded for the weekend. As for the animation, I don't really need to say anything about the animation. I mean, I will still say, Snipple did a pretty decent job here again, though it was weird seeing the 8 circular lights from the decoy UFO on the actual UFO in this episode. But you probably know this by now, the quality of the writing is what matters more than the quality of the animation, and the writing for me helped make this another enjoyable episode of the show. Not 100% perfect, but still an episode I'd watch again. Now, our next segment that we're going to be talking about is Sleepover with the Enemy. And this one was written by Joanna Hausman and Alex Estrada. It was storyboarded by Heather Gregerson, Eric Kling, Alan Delmar Oka, and Eddie Pittman. And it was directed by Amber Tornquist Hollinger and Eric Kling. In this one, during preparations for a sleepover in celebration of the anniversary of their friendship, Gretel and Bailey encounter new student Tina.
Good morning, class! I have a special announcement. My apartment still has termites. Also, we have a new student. Please welcome Tina. She just moved here from out of state.
I left my home and everyone I know. I'm all alone now.
There's a seat next to me!
Bailey extends her hand to Tina after she explains that she is all alone now after moving away from her hometown, fueling Gretel's jealousy. Meanwhile, Kevin camps out in the mall in anticipation of receiving a limited edition copy of the new video game, The Ocean But With Monsters, which Fred finds odd. Throughout the day, Gretel continually feels left out as Bailey and Tina spend more time together, especially with the fact that Tina has a pet rodent just like Gretel. In her case, it's a gerbil named, well, Gerbil. And that culminates in Bailey inviting Tina to join her sleepover. After the song sequence of Third Wheel, Gretel decides to go home in retaliation. However, when she asks Fred to drive her home, she instead takes her to Bailey's house and tells her to talk things out with her. As Gretel approaches the front door, Tina, who is revealed to be a spy from a fictional country called Bolgylvania when she secretly calls two henchmen from her phone, has Bailey and Roman play a virtual reality video game in order to distract them while she executes her grand plan to compensate for her country's lackluster video game making skills and to use Bailey to replace her former best friend. Gretel begins to find out about this when she sees Tina's grown-up henchmen carrying the couch where Bailey and Roman are sitting into their truck, follows them underneath a bridge on the road, and upon learning about Tina's origins, notifies Kevin only for his cell phone battery to die before he has a chance to assist Gretel. After an intense battle above the road, Gretel realizes that she must instead be nice to Tina with help from a floating Bailey head. She then learns that Tina misses her best friend Grobla, who is in a Bolgylvanian space program, and so Gretel reunites Tina and Grobla, after which she reconciles with Bailey and the two resume their sleepover. Then when Kevin finally arrives at Bailey's house, he sees that Gretel and Bailey are safe and sound and is given a copy of The Ocean But With Monsters by Roman, ending off Sleepover with the enemy. Okay, so now let's go over to the references. There are a few cultural references I got. Obviously, the title is a reference to the 1991 psychological thriller film Sleeping with the Enemy. Phineas and Ferb also had an episode that parodies this title, which was the Season 3 episode Sipping with the Enemy, which finds Phineas and the gang putting on a magic show while Vanessa goes out for coffee with Monty Monogram despite their warring fathers. I haven't seen the actual movie of Sleeping with the Enemy yet, but I am aware of it, and I also watched the Simpsons episode titled Sleeping with the Enemy from Season 16, in which Nelson is taken into the Simpson house by Marge to stay with her and Bart.
Nelson, what are you doing out this late?
My mom ditched me. She went to Hollywood to be an actress, but her range is limited.
Oh, she's still your mother. Come inside.
As Fred is driving Gretel in her car, I spotted a Keep Left sticker on her rear windshield. Keep Left is the name of a rock band that Dan Povenmire has had a history of being a member of. And finally, Tina's battlesuit sports robotic tentacles like those of Dr. Octopus from the Spider-Man comics. And now for some handy tools out of my big toolbox of Sleepover with the Enemy supplies. This episode is the second one to have its title credits displayed in white as opposed to light yellow like most other episodes, following Okie Dokie. This choice of color makes the title credits very similar to those of a typical Milo Murphy's Law episode, which also has its title credits displayed in white on top of using the same Cooper black font. It is revealed that Gretel is indestructible, which she previously wagered to Kevin in Empower Failure. She's shown to be indestructible when she gets run against a wall under the bridge by the antagonist's truck and comes out from behind safe and sound. This is the first episode where Bailey is abducted. An instrumental of My Best Friend Bailey's Birthday from Birthday Besties is played when Tina is hanging out with Bailey at her house.
Everything okay, sweetie?
I just wish Gretel was here.
I know what might cheer you up. We can finally play The Ocean But With Monsters.
Actually, I was thinking we could play another game.
It's revealed that Bailey dislikes calzones simply because they're just folded pizzas, and there was one caption error I found where during the song Third Wheel, the lyrics are "chopsticks are in, so I'll take 2 please," but the captions only say "chopsticks, I'll take 2 please." The image scene transitions include an annoyed Gretel with a model skeleton, which is used to transition to Kevin and Fred at games and stuff. Then there are the romantic teenagers cosplaying as a sailor and a squid monster, which is used to go to Gretel, Bailey, and Tina at the Dream Mall's food court. And finally, Kevin holding his battery-depleted cell phone, which is used to cut back to the road where Gretel and Tina are fighting. And now let's talk about my thoughts. When I saw that one promo for the new episodes for November 2022, in which some of the clips they showed were from this episode, I saw that one clip of Gretel getting run against that wall by the truck, and I saw what looked like blood coming from behind, and I was like, oh god, is Gretel okay? Because it was so shocking to see that joke on a family-friendly show. And then when I watched the episode, the joke turned out to be that Gretel is confirmed to be indestructible, and the blood that came from behind against the wall was just ketchup swished out of a few packets that were in Gretel's pocket, which could be hidden in her supersuit. This isn't the only time that they tried to slip in some dark humor in one of Dan's works that might fly over kids' heads, as they did a joke at the end of the Milo Murphy's Law episode, The Llama Incident, in which Milo, Zach, and Melissa fall far off a tree when that branch breaks, and as they're falling, the next shot shows a few objects falling and going splat with some red fluid splashing onto some rocks. But it turns out to be bags of red paint that Mort dropped at his new job, and the three are safe and sound. And Phineas and Ferb did something like this at the end of the episode Hip Hip Parade from Season 2, when Buford smashed Baljeet's jelly donuts off screen, and the red filling splattered on Phineas, Ferb, and Isabella. I actually found both of those jokes surprisingly clever and well delivered, and it isn't much different here.
Get him! Squish the ketchup packets I had in my pocket!
I thought the Kevin subplot where he makes it first in line for the release of the Ocean Butt with Monsters and camps out in the mall in anticipation of it was pretty hilarious and my biggest highlight of the episode. There was even one point where Kevin leaves his campground behind and lets the others take his place in line to make sure Gretel is okay, and Martha, who is the teen girl in the squid monster suit, gets in character and says, "There are no lines in the ocean, only a beckoning of the heart," but then the teen boy in the sailor suit interrupts and says, "Just move up, Martha." And that also adds to the hilarity of the subplot. When it comes to my thoughts on Tina, in a world where there are some villains and antagonists whose sympathetic traits can fail pretty badly, Tina is a good example of how to write a sympathetic antagonist, as she's not completely evil, or at least not as evil as other Hamster and Gretel villains. She just misses her best friend, who happens to be a recruit in the Bolgylvanian space program, who ended up stuck in a space station, and she feels alone as a result, and it was a really heartfelt moment when Gretel brought the space station down to Earth to reunite Tina with Drobla. Not to mention that Cameron Grimes does a great job voicing Tina using a northeastern European accent, which fits very well with her, considering that Bolgylvania, her home country, is a fictional European country located close to Russia. I even felt pretty sorry for Gretel early on when she thought that she was being left out and that Bailey favored Tina more than her. And one more thing, I find it funny how Tina refers to Gretel as Grendel.
What now, Sergey? Oh, Grendel! Hi! Hi, Tina. Sorry about earlier. Can I talk to Bailey?
For the rest of the jokes and gags, they're pretty solid. One of them being when Miss Jamanpour enters the classroom to introduce Tina to everyone, and she says, "I have a special announcement. My apartment still has termites. Also, we have a new student." I just love how she put her announcement that she still hasn't fully gotten rid of the pests in her apartment first, before the actual announcement of Tina being the new student. Another moment I loved is when Gretel turns her head and gets scared by a skeleton sitting next to her, but realizes from Miss Jamanpour that it's just a model skeleton for today's science lesson, and Jamanpour plays with its arms and pretends that it got eaten by termites. There's also another good recurring gag with the imaginary floating Bailey head gag, in which she talks to Gretel into being nice to Tina in order to stop her during their fight.
How am I gonna beat her?
It's easy to be nice.
That's sweet, but I'm in the middle of something, floating Bailey head.
If you're nice, you can make a friend out of anyone.
Oh, I get it.
And calzones are just folded pizza.
And the ending shot with the space monster inside the floating space station saying, "I am all alone now," in an alien language with subtitles on screen. And the song Third Wheel is a pretty enjoyable montage number that shows Gretel, Bailey, and Tina all hanging out, but Tina gets more attention from Bailey than Gretel does as she feels left out, with a catchy instrumental and some good lyrics that list some pairs and twos that good things come in, and how a third edition wouldn't fit as well on those when it comes to Gretel's perspective on Bailey's friendship between her and or Tina.
Third wheel on a two-wheel bike. It's an arrangement that I'm finding really difficult to like. There's a third wheel that odd number 3. But is the third wheel her, or is it me?
This episode, like usual with the second segment of an episode of this, is animated by Synergy Animation, and their animation is good as usual, as it does have most of that hand-drawn feel. I don't need to say much about it since I have talked about the usual aspects of it many times before, but I will say my biggest highlight of the visuals has to be the intense fight scenes of Hamster and Gretel versus Tina and Gerbil. They pretty much went all out with the action here, both on the road and in the sky, and that makes the ketchup packet joke even better with how dark it seemed at first. There are a couple noticeable issues I saw, such as the part where Gretel and Bailey are walking down the food court to a table with their frosty drinks, and Gretel's hand slightly clips off her wrist for a few seconds. And since the second half of the episode is set at nighttime, Hamster and Gretel bring Bailey and Roman back to their home at night after reconciling with Tina and Gerbil, and Kevin arrives there too, but when Kevin receives a copy of the Ocean Butt with Monsters video game from Roman, and the shot changes back to outside the Carter residence, it's suddenly daytime, like, it's literally in broad daylight and yet it's still nighttime. I found that really weird, honestly. This was overall a very enjoyable episode with some good comedy, action, and storytelling, as well as one of the better examples of how to write a sympathetic antagonist. For anyone looking for a good episode of Hamster and Gretel, this is another one that I recommend. And finally, we shall go and end things off with our roller coaster rating. For Grounded, I give that episode 8.5 roller coasters full of sentient sloppy joes out of 10 for having some solid writing and a good plot, although the animation wasn't perfect. And then I give Sleepover with the Enemy 9 roller coasters full of many copies of The Ocean Butt with Monsters out of 10, as it has a lot of great moments throughout, and Tina is one of the better written sympathetic antagonists we've had in recent years. So, my overall rating for this episode is 9 roller coasters out of 10, another enjoyable round of episodes for the show, and one that I look forward to revisiting at some point in time. Now, I've got all the other updates out of the way at the beginning of this episode, but before we finish off today, let's now go over the Phineas and Ferb Season 5 updates that I haven't gotten to cover since the last episode. First things first, let's do a quick recap of every Season 5 episode of Phineas and Ferb that's aired since July of 2025 all the way up until now. So the episodes that aired on Disney Channel since then weren't back-to-back unlike in June when the season came out. On Saturday, July 5th last year, we've had the long-awaited Meep Me in St. Louis, the third Chronicles of Meep episode, in which Meep enlists Candace and the kids to help bust his nemesis, Mitch, before he can steal a long-lost treasure hidden somewhere on Earth. And surprisingly, that episode wasn't as well liked as the previous two among the Phineas and Ferb fanbase. And then on July 12th, there was No Slumber Party, in which the kids and Candace each have a sleepover party on the same night, and the Ballad of Bubba Doof, where the kids build a forced perspective western town while Agent P is captured by Doofenshmirtz's swamp-dwelling cousin, Bubba Doof. Both of these half hours were released on Disney Plus earlier in June, along with the previous 8 episodes of Season 5 up to that point. On July 19th, there was Attack of the Candace Suit, which is exactly what you think. It's a sequel to the Candace Suit, in which Buford's Candace Suit comes to life and tries to take over the real Candace's life. And paired with it was Book Club, where Candace ignores her brothers for a day in order to help her mom with a bust of her own. Then on July 26th, we've got The Battle Days, which has Vanessa and Doof traveling to Drusselstein while the boys dig for Mom's lost wedding ring, and Mantis Fact, where the kids build a bird mansion for a rare macaw while Doof deals with giant praying mantises. Next up in August, the only episode to air that month was on Saturday, August 2nd with The Nightmareinator, in which Doof's dream projectinator misfires and projects people's dreams for all to see, and Doof in Retrograde, where Doof becomes the center of his own solar system, while Irving tries to impress Phineas and Ferb. So that whole episode is a double dose of Doofenshmirtz right there. 2 months later, in October, the season returned on Saturday, October 18th with Bend It Like Doof, which has the OWCA and Love Muffin facing off in a soccer match to settle a debate between Dr. Doofenshmirtz and Major Monogram, and Dooflicated, the episode that was previewed at San Diego Comic-Con last summer, where Doof attempts to give his own flawed personality to his brother Roger, but his innator hits lots of different people, including Phineas, Ferb, and the rest of the main kids. Then on October 25th, they aired Space Adventure, which was just a filler episode where Baljeet forces Buford to watch an episode of the Space Adventure series while the latter is sick in bed. And that was originally a deleted cutaway scene from the Candace Against the Universe movie, and Drugenfest, where Isabella is eager to impress foreign emissaries at Drugenfest with help from the Fireside Girls, but Doof's plan gets in her way, while Phineas, Ferb, and the boys grow the world's largest Dunkelberry. So this whole episode is Candace Against the Universe centric, as the latter segment continues Isabella's rivalry with Dr. Doofenshmirtz from that movie. Then in November, on Saturday, November 1st, we had Doofercise, in which Doof gathers energy from people exercising while the kids pilot a boat that surfs concrete, and the long-awaited Croquet Y8 episode, which was previously only mentioned in For Your Eyes Only from Season 4. And in this one, Candace and Jeremy make a parody documentary as the kids play an extreme game of croquet. First, there was Season 3's My Fair Goalie, where they played Football X7, then For Your Eyes Only, where they played Hockey Z9, and now we finally got Croquet Y8. I wish it was given a more unique title like the 2 previously mentioned episodes, but there's nothing I can really do, especially since it already aired. Then on November 8th, there was Dinner Reservations, in which Vanessa and Monty bring their warring fathers, Doof and Monogram, to a Meet the Parents dinner. And they finally did it, people. They finally gave us an episode where Buford actually gets his Bread Bowl hot tub after several episodes this season, and it's simply called Bread Bowl Hot Tub, where Buford's dream comes true when he goes on a whimsical adventure with a Bread Bowl hot tub. And lastly, on November 15th, the last episode of the year came out with Entrance Exam, where Monogram and Carl inspect Agent P's many lair entrances while Candace tries to speak to the mysterious force, and Dungeons and Dating, in which the kids go on a dungeon crawl while Doof tries a reality dating show. Alright. Now that we're all caught up with what's happened in Season 5 so far, let's talk about the remaining episodes for January 2026 and when the rest of Season 5 will be released on Disney+. When it comes to the Season 5 release on Disney+, as I am Canadian, I was surprised to see that the first 10 episodes of the season were released on Disney+ over here in September 2025, since now they're releasing episode batches in Canada at the same time as in the US, ever since Chorus Entertainment shut down most of the Disney-related networks there, including Disney XD, Disney Junior, the French language La Chaîne Disney, and ABC Spark, which leaves just Disney Channel to be the only one left. But now wherever Season 5 is available on Disney Plus in the world, the second half of Season 5 will be releasing there on Saturday, January 17th. Plus, Disney Channel has been airing a marathon of Phineas and Ferb Season 5 episodes since Monday, January 12th from 7 p.m. Eastern Pacific in the US, leading up to the season finale on Friday the 16th. And as I'm recording this, chances are they will have aired by the time this goes live to the public, and the rest of Season 5 is likely streaming right now. And of course, it's time to reveal the episode titles and synopsis for the final 2 episodes of Season 5, which will be airing on Disney Channel on Friday, January 16th from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Pacific. And they are Elevator Irritator, Master of Fate, and the season finale, Vendpocalypse the Musical. Doof starts the Vendpocalypse and saves Norm. And this one is the episode that features Meghan Trainor as the episode's antagonist, Vending Machine Prime. If you're wondering what the other episode synopses are, just don't ask, because they weren't officially confirmed. All I saw in the summary was the show summary, Stepbrothers keep busy during summer vacation. Okay, what are the actual synopsis of the episodes? Why only give me nothing but the show description? As for Vendpocalypse the Musical, this is the second episode to have the words The Musical in its title, after the Season 2 finale, Roller Coaster the Musical. In other words, if I had a nickel for every time a Phineas and Ferb season finale episode had the words The Musical in the title, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? But the synopsis of that episode feels too lazy for me. Like, couldn't they put in more effort to add more plot detail to the summary? You can't just write a summary for the episode that just says, Doof starts the Vendpocalypse, Doof saves Norm. That's not enough, and it feels like a poor description right there. But I'll still have to see it for myself to see in full what the episode is all about. So yeah, those are the last 2 episodes of Season 5, and for those of you who are listening to this earlier and watch Phineas and Ferb, set your DVRs or wait for it on streaming the day after, because these final Season 5 episodes will premiere on Disney Channel in the US on Friday, January 16th, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Pacific, and then the rest of Season 5 will be releasing on Disney Plus the next day. And that will be pretty much it for now, so thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Danville Discussion. As for me, you can find me on my Facebook page at Real Caleb Dirksen, on my Tumblr and TikTok pages at Caleb Dirksen2 with the number 2 at the end and all in lowercase, on Instagram at Caleb.Dirksen for my main page or at Caleb Flynn Fletcher for my alternate page, on Threads at Caleb.Dirksen, on DeviantArt at CalebDirksen20, and on Blue Sky at CalebDirksen2.bsky.social. Plus, you can add me on Discord by entering the username Caleb Reviews, all in one word and all in lowercase. You can also find me on YouTube. All you have to do is look for Caleb Dirksen in the search bar and look for the icon of me as a soldier. And if you want to give the most support for this podcast and get some great rewards, including getting access to new episodes ad-free and 1 to 2 days early, then please consider joining me at patreon.com/Caleb Dirksen. Special thanks to everyone who has followed or supported me on Patreon, including Kalela Shaw, Sue Friend, Brock Clifton Friend, Nathan Smith-Trovich, Pandal, and my free patrons Gilbert Gann, Alec the Videomaker, Juan Almendarez, Ronnie Whitfield, Matheson Mullen, Susan Thagard, Nicholas Cangel, and Encarni Dominguez. It really means a lot to me. As for this podcast, we are available to listen on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, Good Pods, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, and you can also find us on Spotify for Creators by using your Apple or Android device or going on the web at anchor.fm/Caleb-Dirksen, and it'll take you directly to the Danville Discussion page on Spotify for Creators. If you like what you've been listening to and you like to help us get discovered, then please hit that subscribe button on the podcast page. Please rate and review this show with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast service, and please tell your friends about it. That would be so great. And if you are watching this on YouTube or listening to this on YouTube Music, then tap that like button and leave us a little comment with your thoughts on this episode of Hamster and Gretel. You can also share your feedback or ask some questions by sending us an email at danvillediscussion@gmail.com with either the Danville Discussion or the episode topic in the subject line. Join us next time, and I'm going to take a break from Hamster and Gretel for now and get back into Phineas and Ferb with the show's 10th episode from Season 1, A Hard Day's Night, and I, Brobot. Tune in next time for the newest episode of the Danville Discussion with all things related to Phineas and Ferb and beyond, and with that said, thank you guys so much for listening, and until next time, this is Caleb, over and out. This podcast was created strictly and only for entertainment and information purposes. It is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company, Disney Television Animation, or their affiliates. All and any names, images, clips, sounds, or other items related to Phineas and Ferb, Milo Murphy's Law, Hamster and Gretel, and other Disney properties are trademarks and or copyrights of their respective holders. All original content from this podcast is the intellectual property of the Danville Discussion and the host or hosts running the podcast unless otherwise noted.